this was happened yesterday. I ended up winning this game. I honestly don't think I should have won it. I think I just was more patient in some of our engagements that ended up helping me win. But I'm blue, by the way, so lower left in this replay.
Cool.
But,
Okay, so you're doing a 2-on-1. You're trying to just follow that build order.
yes.
And do you have a one? What's your MMR right now? Because I know for ZERG
MMR
previously
is at,
you were like
yeah. So
just
I
under
just hit
3K. Yeah.
2.8. Yeah, I just hit. I've been 2.8 with Terran now about for 1-2 weeks. I was kind of stuck in gold, like basic gold for a while, but then two things that really helped me was you talked a lot about the macro cycle in your Bronze 2 GM series, and at my time that Zerg brain that just helped me click immediately with Terran. And then what was also really eye-opening was your silver video, where it's like you did all your pre-splitting and then you just took your hands off the keyboard for 20-30 seconds and just let the army do its thing. And I was just like, that was just eye-opening to me, because it's like, sure, Terran can be very micro-intensive, but it's like, if you're smart about when you do your pre-splits, it's like, you just make life easier on yourself. And kind of like gives you the opportunity to focus on other things.
Yeah, we're over micro and stuff. It's most Terran players' worst nightmare, mate. So it's definitely an issue. All right, so let's focus on some minutia. Now, this is obviously not the highest priority for you right now because you are in platinum.
Yeah,
2?
well, it's weird because
I know the leagues are derpy, but if we look at like, do you know the Bernie website? Let me link you up.
So if you look at the website, the Plat 3 range is like 2,720 to about 2,960, and I'm right in the middle of that.
Right in the middle of those 2 leagues. Okay, yeah. So you're kind of Plat 3, Plat 2. All right, so but let's always healthy to focus on the minutia, right? The minute details. So it's like, okay, we're starting an SCV at the start. So this is like, all right, replay 1 TVT on glittering versus Avi PT. Okay, so right from the start, it should be like, okay, we should have an extra SCV queued up pretty much immediately.
Okay, so just queue it up immediately 2 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't have the money for it right at the start, right? But as soon as you got the money, you did. We should be putting a depot down right on 100. Perfect. Okay, fantastic. We've changed the rally point back to the minerals. Now, you haven't done any doubling up of the minerals. Checking your APM, reminding myself of what your APM is. I don't think that's a super big priority. No worries. We're not going to talk about that.
My APM's not the best. I know. But
look, if you were at 80 plus APM, I'd be like, come on, we got nothing else to do. We might as well double up because obviously we can see those side patches do only have 1 worker on them. Something you can do if you want to do like a baby's version of it. So is what I'm going to call this, which is what I started with before I started methodically doing it back in the day. And it was just from a day 9 daily, funnily enough. One of the few that I actually watched, surprisingly. People always assume I watched every single one of his videos, but there's so many hundreds of hours of content. And the very few I did watch, always something to take away. So just rally it to a patch that doesn't already have 2 workers on it, right? So what you can do is you can be like, hey, these top 2 patches don't have one. Put the rally point on that top patch. And then when that guy pops out, change the rally point to the very bottom right patch only has 1 guy on it. They're not always going to stay on that patch, but it just gives you a good chance of it happening, and it naturally spreads them out a bit more.
Right. And I feel like, especially as Terran, there's so many little actions to do at the beginning that's like, I think I have the I feel like I do have the bandwidth to do that. So.
Yeah, that one's like, it's not, you're having to then spam click the SCV and stuff, which is like a lot more kind of, APM intensive, multitask intensive, but that's kind of nice. The gas is a little slow there. So got to try to make sure the moment you put that barracks down, you also immediately pull the SCV and send it to the gas. You won't have money for it yet, but that's fine. So it's like, it should be like build barracks.
Immediately.
Sorry, wait. Did we already... Let's check. Did we already have an SCV queued before the barracks went down?
I thought
yes, we did. Yeah, good.
Is that okay?
Always. That's what we want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes people get weird with it, and they're like, build my barracks, then queue the SCV. Just no gaps in the SCV production. It's fine. So yeah, if you immediately build the barracks and then click an SCV, send it to the gas geyser, we can just take that a little bit quicker. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it's just like your barracks timing does make a difference for how solid your build orders are, right?
Yeah.
So you can see we took a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to bother with queuing the worker to the inside of the gas. We just want to make sure we pull the next 2 workers onto that gas, like as it finishes, no later than that, right?
Yeah.
Now, you sent an SCV scout out, and you hotkeyed it, and you queued it, making me happy right now. Awesome. You don't leave your SCV to sit behind the natural or anything like that?
No, I was doing that at first, but I eventually got to a point where I was like, I feel like the Terran with that 17 scout gives you so much information based on, is the barracks down, how many gases they have,
Yep.
did they wall off, and did they basically put down the natural at the same time as you? Because it's like, I feel like if they put the natural at the same time as you, it's like, okay, they're doing the same, they're doing greed like I am, so I don't have to worry about pressure. But it's like if that natural is not down at the same time, and like say there's more than one gas, or they walled off, I'm like, this Terran's probably going for cheeky stuff, and I can anticipate either aggression or they're just slow with their build. And I feel like if they're slow with their build, I'm already ahead.
Cool.
Now I don't know if that's a good mentality to have, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, that's perfectly fine. So, okay, so we're gonna go Reaper Reactor. Is that what you do with this build? Yeah.
Command center upgrade
I think
complete.
with this, I go, yeah, Reaper Reactor. Yes, I do.
Okay. So because it's Reaper Reactor, that allows us to delay the second deeper, which is why we can get the second barracks nice and crisp.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm asking you what you've copied from my build order, because I don't remember the
Yeah.
build order exactly, because
Yeah.
the way we do builds changes over time. Personally,
yeah.
it's been a little while since I've done a 2-on-1, but this all
Right.
seems to make sense. And then we can go second gas and factory, and the timing on those two is like not really that crazy important, because there is always a bit of downtime between like the starport going down anyway. You can see slight gap in SCV production here, so obviously it's early game, there's a lot of things going on. But
Yeah.
at this point, we probably do want to, once the factory is
Yeah.
down, I guess we still only probably want SCV queued at the moment because it's still early game.
Yeah.
But
admittedly, this was, I think, my 4th time using this build on ladder. So
okay.
I think I'm still getting used to some of the, like this right here, for example. Reaper comes in my base, and my Reaper's checking for proxies right now, which, hindsight, I didn't need to do that, but
So let's
I did
just
it
not
anyway.
look for proxies at all, probably as standard,
Yeah.
right? Unless you've seen that there's no barracks at home for them.
Base is under
Just
attack.
keep the Reaper at home, because you've only got one Reaper, so it's really nice to
Yeah.
make sure that's like gonna be, the Reaper comes in, you can just aim move it, and if you can bring an SCV to make sure you win that fight, that's awesome.
Right.
And then just make sure Marines build straight away, and you should be good. But that disruption really slows you down, right?
Yeah.
And even at super high level, it really slows you down. It just distracts you
yeah.
from things. Luckily, you didn't get
Yeah.
like the SCV on the factory or anything like that. But we do need to like put on gas right now and that sort of stuff. And just
Yeah.
remember the marker, you don't actually need to start a starport straight away. So the
Oh.
factory and the starport, as long as they're started, or the reactor and the starport, sorry, because the factory builds the reactor, as long as they're down by 330, you're doing pretty well. So just keep in
Okay.
mind, as just a general benchmark, if your factory isn't like, don't bother with rushing it. Focus more on just building SCVs, building Marines. That's going to also keep you safer versus random Ling floods,
Yeah.
random Zealot Stalker pressures.
No,
just
that makes sense.
all of that stuff. It's going to just make it easier for you, where if you're
Mm-hmm.
stressing over every second, it's hard. And the thing is, you often can't like afford it anyway. Also, there is another rule, which is you need to start Stim, because that takes forever before the starport and the reactor go down. So it's
Right.
Stim is 100 gas that goes into that, then the starport and the reactor. And you see,
Right.
you've just spent 100 gas on the starport. So if we go back a few seconds, so we should be going Stim. Obviously, we haven't put guys on our second gas yet, but then we'll need another 150 gas to go starport and reactor at
Yeah.
the same time, which means we need 100 more gas,
Nice.
right? Because Stim would be the
Yeah.
100 gas. We've got 50 left, so we need another 100. So if we've got that second gas mining, about 330. And the thing is, at your league, if you do it before 4 minutes, you're doing very, very good. So that's the dirty non-pro gamer secret, right? As always, we
Yeah.
can be much looser. So let's just make sure with where you're at, it's a bit more like just keep the SCVs building, the Marines building. Your build order's looking pretty good. But
well, I appreciate that. Yeah,
so
and it's good hearing though that it's more important to prioritize saturating gas and starting Stim than starting your Starport.
yeah,
Because you'll see here, it's like I'm going through my build. I think I got distracted by that Reaper, and then at one point I was noticed, crap, I'm behind on gas saturation, and I didn't think I was gonna have the gas to hit my timing. So I kind of compensated by making a third gas early, but I only kept one worker on it just to try to get the gas needed for my. Now, obviously, that's inefficient, and in the future, I need to focus more on saturating than worrying about inefficient compensation.
It also has unforeseen circumstances. Whenever you go off build, like you're changing your pattern, so you're just going to play worse because you're making the game harder for yourself.
Right.
So that's totally fine. Let's just focus on fixing the initial mistake. Get the guys on gas. That'll be cool. In future, don't worry too much about the factory going down. Like when you were first putting this down, let's watch that point really quickly again, because I think it's very useful just to look at that and really cement it in your brain, right? Whenever you identify something like this, like here, you were like, okay, second barracks, slight gap in your SCV production. We should have queued another SCV here straight away. And obviously you were going to build the depot. You've only got so many actions. I don't think you were consciously missing an SCV there. Slight mistake, not the biggest deal. And you're like, okay, get the second gas, get the second gas. So we're gonna start the second gas, start an SCV. This is kind of nice that you're like, build a building, build an SCV, build a building, build an SCV. So this is all pretty good stuff. But we definitely should queue this extra SCV up here, because we had, again, another few seconds on our command center missing. And then you're kind of stressing over, I got to get my factory down straight away.
Yeah.
We don't really need to rush the factory, because the factory takes about 40 seconds. And if we need to start the starport at about 3 minutes 30, so it could be started 20 seconds after this, no worries. 30 seconds later. As long as it's down by 3 minutes, our factory, that's kind of like a nice general benchmark there. That way you can start your Marines, your SCVs, put your SCVs on gas, shuffle things around, all that just ahead of time. Yeah.
I guess that's one question I have then. If we're not, because initially I thought the one thing about this build was it's really important to hit those like sharp timings, but if I can afford an extra 20 seconds, say, is like, say for some reason I'm in a situation where I'm like, I need an early Cyclone. For maybe I don't. Would it be okay to make that early Cyclone before the starport, or before the reactor, or is that just causing too much delays and inefficiencies?
You can always do things like that. The rule is not, can I do that with this build? The rule is you need to have that mapped out as a plan that's made efficient, because you've mapped it out and you know exactly what that variation looks like. So the trick there isn't, does a Cyclone delay you too long? Because we actually get more leeway in StarCraft than we realize. And of course, the further we go from playing Maru and Serral, the more of that leeway we get. But what really it's about is keeping the organization and the understanding of how that moves the pieces around, right? Because if you're like, oh, build a Cyclone, and then like you're shuffling your factory onto a tech lab, you're like, where does that tech lab come from? Does it build the tech lab? Does it build the Cyclone? Wait, does then the Starport build its own reactor? Or like, where do you get the reactor for the Medivacs?
That's how I would imagine it being, because like in my head, it's like, assuming I have the minerals, the only delay is the 20-second delay to build a reactor on the starport rather than swapping the factory in the starport. But that's assuming I have the minerals to afford all of that. Oh, minerals and gas.
So the trick here is, let's go back to why we would actually want to do that. Why would we want to build a Cyclone? For you, I imagine it's you're playing against Terran players who are running in with Reaper Hellion. You know, you mentioned TVT. You're a little bit worried with the opening and stuff. Like, what specifically makes you want to build a Cyclone?
I think it's that. It's like, well, if I get Hellion, two things: Hellion Reaper pressure, or I had a build where a guy. Previously to this, I had a guy that ran 3 early Cyclones into my base, and I only had Marines to defend. I think I had 12 at that point. Luckily, he wasn't good at his Cyclone, so I was able to push it off. But I'm like, if I get later into like Platinum, face off against a guy who's really good with his Cyclone management, like am I in a really bad position there, or am I in an okay position to defend with the Marines that I have?
So I think if we just a bunker's an easier solution than a Cyclone right now. Bunker's a bit more one size fits all. Oh, this PROTOSS player went 2-gate opening. Oh shit.
Build a bunker.
Let's build a bunker. This Terran's gone double gas on one base. Has a, no command center going down just yet. Ooh, let's build a bunker. So I think the simplest solution here, we mentioned it earlier, is
our SCVs are under attack.
We can always have a safety bunker now.
Yeah.
Safety bunker. I mean, up to you to come up with the triggers for that. 2-gate PROTOSS. I don't know. Pull first ZERG maybe, or I don't know, maybe just always first ZERG you like it.
Or
maybe
for like,
just, yeah.
Add-on
TBT,
complete.
it's like if I don't see that natural go down, build a bunker after the factory goes down.
So yeah, that's the important thing, is when would that bunker go down? So your factory, I mean, I think we would squeeze it in probably before. It really depends how safe we want to be. I think we could probably squeeze it in before the factory and accept that the factory is delayed a bit. So I would say at some point here, it's like, okay, you got your second gas down, and then we would go, so reaction equals bunker after second gas, okay? Without interrupting SCV's Marines, okay? So this will naturally push back our factory to start at, let's say, I don't know, 310, 315, which sounds pretty late, right? Because then that finishes 345, something like that, 350 even, and then your starport's going down. But you're still actually going to hit probably a crisper timing than a lot of people right up to a pretty damn good league. It's still going to be a pretty good attack, good Stim timing. But you've got a bunker squeezed in there, so that's totally fine. So we've got like a nice little safety precaution. You wouldn't need that in this game, of course, because we saw an expansion.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, sick as. That's much simpler than squeezing a Cyclone out, because like the Cyclone massively changes the build. So my TVT, my Tane TVT build is actually a 2 Reaper, 2 Cyclone, 2-1-1. And a lot of people don't like it because I don't build any Ravens, but I don't like Raven TVT as much. Like I can play it and I've enjoyed parts of it, but the Raven creates a very static game in a lot of situations, and I really like movement. So it's all about like, okay, my 2 Reapers poke across, they dive in the base, and then I got 2 Cyclones, which are really good map control units. But obviously, if you're not really good at monitoring the map and like intercepting and picking off units on the way across the map, and I always intercept their like Ravens and Banshees crossing over before they get to my main. It's like super fragile, high damage, and then bam, my 2-on-1 comes in, and it's a great build order. I saw Gumiho and Beyond do it. I've done it to like Beyond and Special and all these guys, and I've snuck maps off pro gamers with it. But it's also something which I would never recommend to anyone that isn't a super fast tactical player. And that's kind of like the 2-1-1 tailored for pro TVT. And it hits a lot later than a normal 2-1-1 because you're building 2 Reapers and 2 Cyclones. Obviously, it's a massive delay. And the Starport builds its own reactor, which always feels awkward, even when I've done the build 100 times. I'm like, man, this is not the same as swapping it with the factory. But that's just an idea of like how much of a delay the Cyclone can be, and then also how there's times where your Cyclones are out on the map and their drop went around the edge, and there's a tank sieged up in your main, and the Cyclones aren't that useful anyway.
That makes sense.
I think the bunker is a bit more one size fits all.
Yeah, I agree. I remember I've talked to some people in my clan about like early aggression and stuff, and one of them said, honestly, if you just throw down a bunker against early aggression in Metal Leagues, you're going to earn free MMR. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust his judgment and make life easy on myself.
Have you faced any full proxies or like one base, like early pools and stuff where you've done like the bronze to GM kind of cheese reaction with like bunker on the high ground and stuff?
Well, I don't know, because I've had moments where, yes, I'll face like early aggression right now, but if I'm really tight, I find a lot of times when I'm really tight with my opening, I just have more stuff than them, even if they're trying to push me with early aggression. And so it's like, sure, it could technically be early aggression or cheese, but it's like, as long as I'm tight with my build order, I feel like I can fend it off pretty easily.
sounds like you have not been cheesed that much. As much as I love what you're saying, because most of the time what you're saying is correct and the right mindset, there are also the people who are like, Pig, I keep dying to zealots. What the fuck? Your build's bad. My comment section it reminds me that there are people who run into streaks of just getting cheesed every game on the ladder.
Yeah.
And if someone does build 3 gateways outside your base, no, your standard Reaper into Reactor is not going to be good enough. You do need a bunker on the high ground, and your command center on the high ground and stuff as well, right? And maybe even skip the command center, right? Because all you need to do is survive. If you're up against someone who's actually proxying barracks or gateways outside your base, or going 12 pool zerglings are running across the map, but as long as those are, you've got a reaction for those situations.
So I have a quick question about this. I find I do this way too often, where it's like, I try to control click both of my Medivacs to send them off and boost them, but inevitably you'll see there only one of them goes off, and it's like, I don't know if I'm missing a click there or something, where it's just not only one Medivac is registering, okay, let's go across.
So I've slowed it right down. I mean, the second Medivac is obviously not out right now, so there's no reason for you to be loading this Medivac, first of all, okay?
Okay.
And you end up waiting for more Marines, so this is just completely wasted actions. There is no reason for you to load Medivacs twice, right?
Yeah.
So if you see one Medivac, why are we doing it? Keep macroing. Wait 10 seconds. Come back 5 seconds from now. I don't know, build an engineering bay or a third command center, whatever you're doing next, right? Because this is really bad. I think what ends up happening here is the Medivac's just off screen. Let's take a look. So now we're building some more Marines, because you're going, man, I don't have as many units as I want. Now you're clicking the Marines and sending them into the Medivac. Now you're flying the Medivac to the left side for some reason. And now we're control clicking the Marines again. Okay, cool. So here's where some easier control could be useful. This stuff is so minor and so huge at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
and especially for me, I feel like I really need to prioritize my actions. I mean, honestly, I feel like somebody with conventional wisdom would tell me I have no business performing this build with my APM, but to me it feels the most fun and the most successful, despite my limitations.
So all I would do, and I'm writing this in your document as well, to load the Medivacs, all I'm going to do, I'm going to wait for both of them to be out, and then I'm going to go, cool, there's a bunch of units there, and I'm just going to box all the Marines, all the Reapers, and the Medivacs, and I'm just going to go click on the 2 Medivacs, right click. So the Medivacs are selected, the Marines are selected, everything's selected together. I mean, I'll probably control group them before that as well, actually, before I right click on the Medivac, right? Just box everything. Control. Do you use control 1 for your main army? Is that what these Medivacs will be on?
So since this is a drop, I'll put this on control group 2.
Okay, that's interesting. Everyone has their own techniques. For me, it's my main army, even though it is a drop, so I put it on my main army, and it kind of swaps throughout the game. But it's totally up to you. So let's say control 2, that's what you're used to. And then you're just going to right-click on both Medivacs, and everything's going to get inside. Now, obviously, if they're over SCVs, you might need to wait for an SCV to move past that's rallying through, and then box them. That's fine. Wait a second. That's cool. But in terms of the control click, no, they were on screen. You just didn't control click. I don't know how, but you just didn't.
I probably missed it. I think I probably just missed it.
Yeah, I mean, you click. You had the other Medivac selected, and then you clicked on this Medivac, and I don't know. I mean, because it's close enough. Even if units are just off screen, they'll get selected usually. Yeah. Or if they're on the very edge of the screen, and we can see the air unit spotter from your camera, it's like well on our screen. So a control click definitely would grab that. You can test it now. You control click the SCVs, control click the Medivacs from your same camera view. It selects both Medivacs. So
I just missed it then.
Yeah.
I just need to get in the habit, or really the habit you suggested. I think that's the easiest habit.
Just control group and send them across. And when you do send it across, you're just clicking it to the dead space, right? And then you'll double tap number 2 and you'll micro it in, right? We're not queuing that into a base or anything, right? Good man.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. I'm sending to its dead space, like right outside.
Staging zone, I like to call it.
Yeah, the staging zone.
Yeah.
One thing I love about this build is as you're sending it across, it's a great opportunity for me to build up my transition. And I think right now, it changes. A lot of the times it depends on how I'm feeling that day. But I would say, generally speaking, I try to make my transition 1 extra barracks and my third command center.
Transition.
I would say that's my.
Okay.
I don't know if that's
So,
good or if I
third
should
racks.
focus on 511.
No, that's fine. So, I mean, it's really up to you, though. The thing is, so that's only part of a transition. Let's pause here, because once again, we just unloaded one medevac at a time. What's going on? But we'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to freeze frame before the micro happens, all right? Just as our camera jumps over there, which is going to happen in a moment. Okay, here we go. And because you only had one medevac control grouped as well. Oh, nasty. Very bad habits.
I know.
This is a redundant APM dungeon we've just stepped into, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I think I think it takes me a moment to notice that in game too.
Yeah, we're just wasting lots of actions for no reason. I've seen you be more efficient than that. So don't worry. Ignore it. What is your transition? So you've said third CC, third barracks. I mean, that's fine. You'd only be on 2 gases as well, right? Because
I need to make more gases, yes.
But when do we take those gases? But first of all, we can't decide this until we know what we want to do. Are you killing him with a 2-base biotank push, a 3-base biotank push? I imagine it's one of the two, right? Just a biotank?
Generally speaking, yes. It's my transition's a biotank push.
Okay, 2-base or 3-base? What do you want to do?
I like 3-base just because, I don't know, I find it's easier to get more ahead if this attack goes well than if I'm trying to go for a 2-base all-in.
Okay, so you're going to go third racks, third command center. Why build 1 barracks? Let's check your APM. You're up to 83 APM. You're still not the fastest player, but dude, I gotta say, queuing workers back to mining, depot builders staying on depot building, some great habits you've really added into your play. So I'm loving what I'm seeing. I do think it's better to just build 3 barracks at once, because every barracks you build on a separate timer, you're giving yourself extra actions. I got to go back and build a reactor 46 seconds from now. I got to go back, build barracks, queue back to minerals. Go back, build barracks, queue back to minerals. Go back, build a reactor. Go back, build a reactor. You build 3 at once. It just saves you so much APM.
Yeah.
In terms of APM efficiency, it's like off the charts.
One question I have is, say I'm just really tight with my build and I'm a little lower on minerals. Is it better to prioritize the barracks or the third command center, or is that just something that I can choose personally?
I mean, off the top of your head, good question for yourself to answer. Why would you want to prioritize the barracks, and in what scenario? And on what scenario would you rather prioritize getting that third command center started? You tell me.
It really depends. I think it's not so much what I see in game. I think it's more, do I want to go for a macro transition or do I want to go all in on my opponent? I don't think I have the game sense yet to know whether or not I want, like, based on what I see, I should go all in or go for a macro transition. I think it solely depends on what I want to do with my...
Absolutely. The only addendum there is, even if you're going 3cc, if you're like actually straight up cutting bio production for little bits here and there, it's a bit more dangerous to a counter attack, or like if he's attacking you at the same time. But that's such a niche situation because you're attacking him 90% of the time. They're going to be busy dealing with our attacks, right? There's a very narrow window. So what you said is like 95+%, just spot on, perfect, correct, right? So if we're going 3-base, well, we'll go for the third command center. Why not? Just squeeze it out. If we cut a couple of Marines, it's not the end of the world, right? Likewise, we want to make sure SCV production's constant behind it as well, right?
But that's one mistake I make here is I was good with my army production here, but I was not good with SCV production.
Which you're already at 41 SCVs. If we're doing a 2-base all in, we could make an argument for we don't want any more SCVs. Even if we go 4 gases, it's like, we could be slightly under mineral saturation. Who cares, man? Like, let's just get those 3 barracks started. Don't miss any Marine tank medevac production. That'd be great. For the macro transition, not so much.
It might be good for me to focus on 2-base all-ins as I'm still practicing this build, just to get more repetition in. Well, look, we've got 2 transitions we're writing out. You see where I'm writing it in the notes?
Actually, do you have a second monitor? I've linked it to you on Discord.
I do have a second monitor. Let me...
I don't even see you reading the notes. Oh, no. Oh, no, he can't even see the chalkboard, internet.
I've just been chatting with you the whole time.
That's all good. So anyway, I'm writing transition, 3-base biotank. For that, we just go 3rd CC and double engineering bay. And then 3rd and 4th gas. And then we'd go... Actually, do we even need the third and fourth gas? Yeah, if we're building tanks, why not? And then we get 3 times barracks all at once. And that would be kind of a nice way of doing it, right? And that way you've got, you know, upgrade starting, building SCVs, blah, 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 add the gases, add the extra barracks. And then for the 2-base push, right? We probably want to get... +1 weapons is all that really matters. So I think what we'd try to do is probably just go 3rd gas. Maybe 3rd. We make it simple. We'd go 3rd and 4th gas at once, just so we can keep up tank medevac production. And then we go 3 more barracks. And the thing is, we could tweak this. You're like, I always have heaps more gas than I need. I'm just going to build 3 gas with my 2-base all in. Right? You could do that.
Makes sense.
And if I have a few less medevacs, who cares? As long as I'm getting tank production as the consistent thing, that's huge. But essentially, it's just 3 more barracks and 1 engineering bay, right? Just for +1, right? Because it's 5 barracks, factory, starport, 1 engineering bay going. Bam, that's your 2-base push transition. So either way, I don't know what you're normally going to queue up before you go in. I do like to always queue up 3 SCVs per command center before I go in with something like a double drop, right? Or unless we're already at 44 SCVs, right? And we're doing a 2-base all in. If I can start a 3rd command center before, that's great as well. And yeah, if we have a gap in army production, not a big deal at all, right? Rather power a little bit, get those buildings, those SCVs going, that stuff where, you know, it's like, hey, and then that allows us to get our barracks down faster the moment we like look away from our pressure or pull out with our drop, whatever happens with it.
That makes sense.
And then we'll catch up on the army production, no worries. Whereas if you straight up miss the 3rd command center starting, that sort of stuff, that's gonna be it. So anyway, which one of these do you want to start with now?
I think for now, just to get, I feel like it's generally speaking, all-in play I find is easier than macro play. So I think focus on the all-in for now, just to get repetition in. Then as I get more comfortable with the build, I can be like, okay, I can start thinking about a macro transition.
You'd be surprised how much longevity. I mean, 2-base Terran has so much longevity anyway, and with tanks and marines and medevacs, there's so much you can do with this, dude. So
yeah,
that's cool. All right, we'll focus on the 2-base push. All right, first rule: don't ever build a Cyclone. You're not allowed to build Cyclones unless you go for them early and use them in the specific way Cyclones are meant for. At this point, we're past the Cyclone expiry date, so don't build Cyclones. Just go for tanks at this point. You've got Stim Marines. So even if like the things, what are those Cyclones good for? Well, it's like, it's so good against like handfuls of enemy units, right? Like small units early game, but it requires micro every time or it's not valuable.
Yeah.
It's good for hunting down Ravens and Banshees. You got Stim Marines, they can do that. Like you don't need it, you know? So
that makes sense.
it's kind of like, this is the end of the Cyclone period where it's like the dominant early game safety unit. So
I think that's good to know though, because that's kind of always my issue is like when you want to make certain units, like especially with the Cyclone. So it's kind of nice to know that I already have the army needed to push away whatever will come at me at this point.
Indeed. You know what? I think I've missed the sign up for EPT today. So let me just message the admin real quickly.
Yeah, take care of that first, please.
Yo, are you adminning today? Can I get late check-in, please? Forgot to press button, like dumbass. Icegar's the best. He's got me. He's got my back.
What a champ.
Awesome. All right, mates. So let's go. So let's visualize. You're doing a 2-base all in. All right. So let's go back 30 seconds in this game. Okay. Oh, maybe not 30 seconds. Like 20, 30 seconds, something like that. Okay. So our medevacs, we did it as one action. We waited. Oh, you know what? I'm going to wait for all 16 Marines. I got both medevacs out. So back at your rally point even, you might just be like, no, I'm just going to wait until these next few Marines come out. Build a few more SCVs, do my thing, right? Like our actions are more sacred than being like, oh, I'm going to send one medevac across and then the other medevac, or load up one medevac, but the other medevac's not here. Because it's all just doubling up on actions, right? So we wait for it and then we just go, okay, box these units, right? Control 2, and then we go right click into the medevacs. And then we just boost, right-click across on the minimap, and we go, okay, cool, we're doing a 2-base all-in. So what are we doing behind that? I wrote down, we're going to get a pretty quick 3rd and 4th gas. Now, we could argue maybe no, because if we look at your gas, maybe you could just be building tanks and some medevacs and Stim. So you know what? Let's go 3 more barracks straight away. Let's get the production up just for raw numbers. We're going to go 3 more barracks, then 3rd and 4th gas, then an eBay. Okay, so what are you doing behind it? You're building SCVs, and we're trying to get up to about 400 minerals. right? Maybe we queue up one extra depot or something here just to make sure we're not getting supply blocked.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe our
That's a good
barracks
point.
is sitting idle. Maybe our barracks factory starport sits idle for a moment, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
we're not focusing on queuing up extra units. And then we go, okay, I'm at 400 minerals. We box the workers in our main base, 3 or 4 of them preferably. Build 3 barracks in a line, queue back to the minerals in the main.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go, okay, that drop's getting close to their base now. We're going to have to look at it soon. So what do? Maybe we save a scan for our drop if you want to use that ahead, up to you. It's probably a good habit to always scan ahead everything you do as a Terran player, just to get used to kind of sucking up the information and giving yourself more time to react. But otherwise,
No, that makes sense.
we're dropping mules, maybe just saving 1, queuing SCVs. If we have time, we take the 2 gases, but I imagine we won't. So it's just like, okay, queue up SCVs, queue up some more Marines and tanks and stuff, and okay, let's go in. So we go in with the drop, we unload, maybe we scan ahead, and we enter that scenario. But we've already got 5 barracks on the way, and then we need to come home after the pressure. So we can kind of think of it as build before drop goes in, and then the other stuff is after drop goes in, 3rd and 4th gas, engineering bay, combat shields, like...
Yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, I missed
yeah.
combat shields in this game. That was a big blunder on my part, but...
You're a true Terran player, man. Everyone does. So in this case, this is why the thing is, you're not going to rush it. You don't want to queue it that early because it's not going to be ready for an important attack. You don't need it straight away. But if we actually chunk it there, we jump home from the fight, 3rd, 4th gas, eBay, combat shields, 3 reactors. That's all one chunk. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful. That's so powerful. 3 reactors. That is huge. Because so many people, it's like chaos and it's different every time they jump home from their pressure and they're doing all sorts of things, but that's huge. All right,
so when you say jump home from fight, is that kind of more like I perform my micro, do what I need to do to make the drop successful, and then after the drop, is that when I go home and do these next actions?
Yeah. So maybe you've lost the whole drop, but you killed some stuff. Cool. Obviously nothing left to micro. Or you've gone in, you've killed 10 SCVs, and then you've scanned and you've seen a shitload of Marines stimming up to come kill you. And you've just loaded up, clicked the Medivacs back way out of the base, and then we just jump home to our base and start macroing.
That makes sense.
And that's the order of things we do when we get home, right? Now, obviously, there should always be something at the start, which I always forget to write this, but you should probably be doing a macro cycle first when you jump home, right? So that's always the first thing. Whenever you come from any situation, it's jump home, build SCVs, build a depot if you need it, and then go into these 3rd, 4th gas, eBay, combat shields, 3 reactors, right? High-level players will not do it in that order because they're adapting a little bit more and doing things at a lightning pace, and they were queuing the SCVs and the Marines while they were over there and stuff. So they'll drop the gases, drop the mules, drop the eBay, drop the 3 reactors, all kind of in a haphazard looking order. But for us mere mortals, this is a very bad habit to try and emulate because we do not have the speed or mental organization to do it. And it's something I even go beyond my own speed and mental faculties all the time with this stuff. So notice how you still only got 1 medevac on hotkey. So this just shows it's like, hey, when you double tap 2 and only selected 1 medevac, and then you had to box those units to stim them. So this is just a disaster in terms of organization. The Marines should have been on control 2 before they got over there. The moment we double tapped and only 1 medevac was selected, alarm bells should have been ringing. We should have been like, what the fuck? Why is this not selected the way it's meant to be? Why am I having to do all this manual stuff, you know? So
and I think part of the problem is just learning this build, and for the first time, I think it sounds to me like I had my priorities out of order. Initially my priority is I need to hit this 5-minute timing, otherwise it makes this nil kaput. But it sounds to me like it's more important to get everything organized. It's more important to be organized than it is to hit a specific timing.
Absolutely.
The understanding I'm getting.
Yeah, and the thing is you've already put a lot of attention into the details, I can tell, with hitting the timing. So it's served you well in some regards. Is it perfect? No, but it's definitely served you well. But we need to say, okay, hey, fundamentals are still the more important thing here.
That makes sense.
And especially in this case, it's like hitting this timing. It's like, if you're not organized, just nothing is worth doing in StarCraft if it's not organized. Micro, not having things on control groups, it's a disaster. It's just not going to achieve anything, right? Holy shit, your opponent has a Florencio tank in the back of his main. I love
He does.
just
Yeah.
some of the insane shit that people do, man. That just makes
Well,
no sense at all.
I'm
We don't know
impressed he
that
went
though.
for. Yeah, we don't know that. And especially whenever I first dropped in, I saw Starport and Tech Lab. So in this moment, my mind was immediate like, this dude is going for battle cruisers and is sending one straight to my mineral line. I need to kill it or else I'm screwed. So I think
Okay.
initially I started killing the Starport, and I was like, no, let's focus on the Tech Lab. And so I think I killed it. I don't know if that was the right call to make, but that was kind of my instinct in the moment, and I followed the instinct.
That's some true Bronze League logic. I mean that in the kindest way possible. I've
No,
coached so
I
many
I
people
appreciate it.
recently who they're like they do this like level 4000 scouting intuitive it's there's like a psychic scouting. I think we should call it psychic scouting should be
Yeah,
the name of this. You're like, oh, this
right.
guy has a robo, he must be building disruptors, and you're like, what? You haven't even seen a robo bay. And he's like, but the last time I played a guy with a robo, he built disruptors and they did good versus me, so now whenever I see a robo I assume it's disruptors. And I'm like,
Yeah,
huh? Like Banshees,
right.
Ravens, like Battlecruisers. It could be
Yeah,
any of those. We don't know. And it shouldn't be something where we're immediately like, I gotta stop the Battlecruiser, man. There's a command center that's not quite finished there. It's a much more vulnerable target. But what is the highest value target? Always. It's the
workers.
SCVs. Always. You don't know there's a
Yeah,
tank back there. You should absolutely go for the worker line. And if he quickly pulls to the natural and you think chasing him's not worth it after you've probably killed 6 or 7 before he reacts. Sometimes you kill 20 before they react, right? If you stim in there
yeah,
quick enough.
for sure.
And then you can take out the tech labs or go for the command center that's building, or even focus the command center in the main, whatever it is. Killing a tech lab won't stop a battlecruiser in production, by the way. It's not like that big. Killing a reactor is much more valuable because it takes 36 seconds to build rather than 18 seconds for a tech lab.
Gotcha,
It takes a
gotcha.
lot longer. But killing a tech lab, it's just annoying. That's all it does. So it's not
Man,
going to do
I
anything
love
for
my
you.
Bronze League reads,
I've coached a
but
few people recently who've done the same thing where like they see one thing and there's like already they know what's going to happen 5 minutes in the future, and I'm like, that does not mean that. Like it could mean that, but it's just there's so much
but it's like
imagination.
9 times out of 10, I'm gonna get way more value out of killing workers than trying to kill something that I perceive.
Yeah, stick to the normal priorities, right?
Yep.
So always workers, and then what tech. If you can get building, then tech building SCVs is pretty good as well, right? Like, so if you can get an SCV constructing a building, it's actually, I mean, how many times have we had some barracks 3/4 complete that we forgot to put SCVs back on after a drop? It happens to everybody.
I
You see
know.
pros sometimes forget a command center at
It's
90% for 40 seconds. It's very annoying to lose building SCVs as
right.
a Terran. So we should immediately pull back from that tank.
Yeah, I was slow in that reaction.
You did it though. So you did do it. You made the correct decision, which is good. He's attacking his own refinery for a moment. Yep, with his tank. His tank is killing his own refinery. What a legend. Which means he was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to A-move or if he was actually trying to click on your unit specifically. But he actually unsieged the tank and saved it. What a legend. Anyways, okay, cool. So, we did some damage and stuff. Not having the SCVs queued and not having a transition plan, most of all, is going to be big. So if we fast forward from here, let's see, well, what is that transition? So now you are doing a 2-base all-in because you go on 5 barracks, but you drop the 3rd command center anyway. And we forget to put on gas, and we haven't started combat shields. So this is just one of those things where
I was disorganized.
you haven't decided beforehand. That's it. Just
Yeah.
now we've given you a decision. You're going to be so much better next time you're in this scenario.
Yeah.
These would be tanks instead of cyclones, which can defend counterattacks, can help
Yeah.
you with a follow-up push. And there's no urgency on you getting out there. Maybe you should have some marine spotters out. If you're feeling a bit naked, you can be like, oh, I'll put a marine here, marine here, marine here, or something to see any attacks come across the map. But other than that, you just be like,
guess-
no, build marines, get the reactors, get the tanks, get the Medivacs, get the upgrades, and just kind of prepare. Yeah.
I feel like that's a good segue to my next question. What's the most efficient way to control group new units? Like, is the easiest way to just have a rally point, and then I have that rally point hotkeyed so that I go immediately to it, box click the units, hotkey, go back to what I'm doing? Or
Yeah, so with Terran, this is one of the big things. That's why most people just F2 like crazy, like you are in this game.
Yep.
Your army's not control grouped at all. But generally, yeah, you just box units from your rally. So basically, you
Okay.
box units at rally. So basically, yeah. So for me, yeah, I have a rally camera location. Some people control group their depot at their Waldorf, right? So they can raise it quickly against run bys, but also it's just, oh, I go there to collect units, right? So basically, do you use camera locations or?
Yes, I do.
So
Right
yeah.
now I have my first 3 bases um hotkeyed and then my production.
Okay. Yeah, so just
But
jump to the rally point, box the units, add to control group 1, and then control click anything you want to split off as well, right? Or control
yeah,
click or box and send off stuff.
I do
So
like the idea. So,
yeah.
sorry, did I hear that right? You said some people will put a SEV or not a depot like towards the front of their base and then just have that depot hotkeyed and they
Well, it
click
would
on
be
that.
this depot for you in the high ground of your main, right? But if you've
Oh,
got a wall
yes.
off against ZERG or PROTOSS or something like that, then it
Hmm.
would be the depot at the front of the natural, right? And that's where
I
your rally
like
point
it.
usually is, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it helps them raise the depot quickly, but more
Yeah.
importantly, it's just for people who don't use camera locations or they don't want to put a camera location on that. They're just used to double tapping. A lot of pros
Yeah.
use that. A lot of pros control group a depot. And yeah,
Interesting.
when
Okay.
I'm playing Terran, there'll be people in my chat who are like, why did you have your depot control group, man? And I'm like, because I know how to use camera locations, guys.
Yeah.
Like, this is not actually an oversight.
I guess. Oh yeah. A follow-up question for that is it kind of like I feel like it goes hand in hand what we've been discussing is it's more important to be it sounds like to be organized with my actions than fast. So it's like if taking the time to go over and hotkey my army is a lot more beneficial to me than trying to be really fast in the
Uh-huh.
game.
Oh, 100%. I mean, organized is fast. Slow is fast, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the different. I always misquote the saying, but it's like, slow is fast and fast
Well,
is slow.
yeah. Well, I think
Essentially, if
that
you try to rush ahead, you're just going to be shit at everything
yeah.
you do in life, right? There's so
Oh
many
yeah.
people who seem to pick something up really quickly, but they don't really know what they're doing. They're just kind of vaguely emulating or intuiting something. They're like acting
Yeah.
like they know what they're doing. And I'm really good at doing that. So I used to be really shit at learning things because I'd just be like, oh, cool, I can kind of pretend I can do the thing or like kind of like skimp by without really having a solid fundamental understanding of what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And then I can like pretend I'm doing it properly. And then like, the moment I'm like out in deep water or there's an unforeseen adjustment or circumstance, I'm like, oh, I actually like have no fucking clue what I'm doing because I never took the time to just slowly understand
Slowly do it.
and
Yeah.
really make sure the neural connections are like very clean and organized. So there's set
That makes
stimulus
sense.
response, stimulus response. So organized urgency is always what I say. If you are playing at a
Hmm.
snail-like pace and your friggin' hands moving so slowly on that mouse, I'm gonna be like, yeah, dude, shout in your ear, spam click, let's go, 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 But for
Hmm.
most StarCraft players, it's definitely 90% of my coaching is me going, organization, organization. I very
Hmm.
rarely find myself needing to tell people to have the
You gotta
urgency.
go
Most
faster.
StarCraft
Yeah.
players tend to have that, but they don't have the
Yeah.
organization. So they're all that urgency, all that speed is just like, remember what I said earlier, redundant APM cycles. Like
Right.
you're like, I'm gonna load up the Medivac. Oh, where's my other Medivac? I'm gonna load up that. Oh, I'm gonna drop with one Medivac. Oh, where is it? Where's my other Medivac? And it's just like you're just repeating the same action. Oh, I'm going to build a
Hmm.
barracks. Oh, I need to come back and build a reactor. Oh, I'm going to build a barracks. Oh, I need to come back and build a reactor. And it's like, this could all just be done in one action. But you're
Hmm.
like, oh, well, technically, I'd lose 2 Marines of production because I could have had this first barracks faster. And it's like, yeah, if you built every reactor right on time. But in actuality, with your own APM and attention restraints, you're 10 Marines short because you just took too long jumping around and you're hitting supply blocks and you're missing upgrades and everything's so late. Whereas if
Hmm.
you just build in a little bit of inefficiency in terms of it's not down exactly right, but you're actually getting maximum value out of your APM, it's like a totally different story, right? So
Got it.
things can
No, that
can
makes
really work
sense.
out. Yeah.
That makes
It's
sense.
it's pretty massive, man. We are running out of time to finish up here. But
It's okay because for me, focusing on the first 6 minutes of the game is so important. So it's like that's why I was like, even though this is a 20-minute replay, we really only needed to focus on really the first half of it anyway. So
yeah.
I really appreciate like I feel like I learned a ton and I think it's gonna really help me going forward. And I really appreciate it.
as the game goes longer, the one piece of advice, obviously control groups are really good. Get used to using them, dude. Absolutely. Because then what you should have been doing in this mid to late game anyway is just like have one drop, go down the right side and either drop in the main or even just stim into the third on the right side and just kill these depots. And then your other army pushes and you do lots of scans in front of it and you always pre-siege your tanks and you just kind of siege them up on the edge of the enemy territory and put your Marines behind the tanks. And then you just keep macroing and chilling. And if he's in front of you, you don't get in range of a base. That's cool. At a certain point, you unsiege your tanks and you just move to a new angle. And you just keep moving around and you're always scanning ahead. And all you're doing is just waiting for him to be slow to reposition. And then you're sieged up in range of a base. He has to come fight into your tanks. Oh, cool. He's going to run into your tank line. You can stim and A-move your Marines from behind your tanks. Easiest victory of your life. TVT is just about patiently moving around and trying to siege up in range of bases. And it's very APM intensive to move tanks around defensively. Most players will fuck it up very quickly. Even at high levels, people will fuck it up pretty quickly. So if you're just not trying to force the issue, you'll get there really quickly. But always scanning ahead of your army. Once you get to the mid game, you don't really need to drop any mules. Just always know what you're walking into. What I see 90% of the time, and I've seen you both do it to each other in this game, stumbling into each other's armies, right? Stumbling into them. And it's just because the scans aren't going down ahead of time. There's no such thing as scanning too much in TVT especially as you go forward. So already though, I think really good start to learning the 2-on-1. The drop is still important. We can still benchmark when you hit with that drop, but try these changes and just benchmark when you're hitting with how many Marines, that sort of stuff. But also check the SCV count you have behind it and check things like, oh, did I get my next 3 barracks started before actually committing to the micro of the drop? Maybe they wait. And the thing is, if your drop sits in the dead space for 10 seconds while you're getting your barracks down and queuing up some more SCVs, who cares? Because then your machine's rolling behind it. Whereas the way you've been doing it, no SCVs building, you're like, you need to do damage because your macro is not continuing behind it. So this takes a little bit of pressure off. We still would like to hit nice and sharp and fast, but let's just prioritize the organization a little bit more, have each next step coming in, and you're going to find you really, really look good. The only time when you really want to tunnel vision purely on the attack is the final big 2-base attack. Because you have no macro happening behind that. Right? No command center.
That's whenever I really need to tunnel vision.
You've got nothing else to do. Maybe you have a drop to distract them with. That your whole point is, hey, distraction, and that allows your main push to push in and get a good position. So that
makes sense.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, mate. Well, good luck. Thanks for
Big.
hitting me up for the coaching again. And let us know how it goes. I look forward to an update in Twitch chat and elsewhere and seeing what the hell's been going on, man.
I'll definitely let you know. I appreciate it again.
Awesome. Good luck, mate. Have a good evening.
You too. Good luck in EPT.
Thanks a lot, mate. Good night.
Yeah. Good night.